Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Amber. So for today's video, I want to do the end of year book tag. I've watched recently Madison Kate and Larry Reed's. I watched both of theirs and I really liked the idea of it, so I wanted to participate in that and make my own. And so we'll just get right into it. So the first one is your most disappointing read of the year. And for me, that one's going to be Leather and Lark by Brynne Weaver. And it's not necessarily that I didn't like the book, because I did really enjoy the story. My problem is that I kind of went into it with too high of expectations, because Butcher and Blackbird was a 5-star read for me. I loved that book. I had so much fun reading it. I never in a million years thought that a dark serial killer romance rom-com would be something that I would give 5 stars to, but it was just so disturbing yet so funny all at once, and I've just never read a book like that, and I had too much fun with it. And I was very much so looking forward to this book, but it just didn't hit the same for me, which was disappointing. I don't know. It was still really good. I still really enjoyed, I don't even remember their names now. I know it was Lark and Lachlan. I still really enjoyed their story, and I still love Lachlan. The grumpy, it works. It works. It does its job and it does it well. But I don't know. Something about it just really didn't hit the same. So maybe I should have went in this with a little bit lower expectations, which I know the next one comes out next year. I don't remember what it's called. It's something like something and Sparrow, or Sparrow and something. But it's the third brother, and then I don't remember her name. And I really like her sassy personality that she had. So I'm looking forward to their book, but I feel like my expectations are not as high as this one was. Underdog book of the year for me. That is A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle L. Jensen. This one I honestly kind of just picked up on a whim. I didn't even hear too much about it. I heard it here and there in a couple of videos of 2024 anticipated reads, but then after it came out, I feel like I have heard next to nothing about this book since it got released this year, and I don't really know why, because this was a 5-star read for me. It was so good. It was so good. It is based on Norse mythology. What I liked about this is you don't have to know anything before going into it. Things are explained very well. It's not overcomplicated. It's not confusing. It gives you the information that you need, and it gives it in a very simple, easy way to digest. I loved this story. I loved our main character. If you've ever watched Vikings, Lagertha at her peak, shield maiden time, that's this main character. I loved her. The banter in this starts right away. Within the first 10 pages, you're already getting the banter, and I absolutely devoured that. I devoured this book in 2 days. I absolutely loved it, and I need the next one to come out ASAP. I know that it comes out next year, and I want to say it's early spring. Definitely one that I think deserves a lot more hype than it gets. A book you loved in the moment, but don't really think about it now. I feel disappointed in myself saying this. Funny story by Emily Henry. This still holds true to its 5-star. Don't get me wrong. It's still a 5-star. And it's always gonna be a 5-star, and I do eventually want to reread this. But I just honestly haven't thought about it really at all since I read it, except for the few moments here and there where I either see it in another video or I've briefly talked about it in another video. But other than that, I feel like I really have not thought about this book, which is extremely disappointing, because I did truly love this book when I read it. I thought that I would never stop thinking about it. Favorite book couple from the year. This one is going to go to Brianna and Jacob from Yours Truly. They're ones that I still think about. I loved their dynamic. Their chemistry was so believable, and the way that they just balanced each other so well between his anxiety and the way that she picked up on his anxiety without even having to say it. She was so just in tune with him throughout the whole story, and the way that she helped him work through it. I loved them. I felt like they had probably one of the most believable chemistry and dynamics that I've seen in a book couple, and they're ones that I still think about to this day. I feel like I did not rate that book the way that I should have. Because I think I gave that either a 4 or 4.25. And I really think that that book is more of like a 4.5, maybe even a 5-star. I still think about that book. And I loved it. Favorite book couple. One of the top ones of all time. A book you cannot stop recommending. This one, I don't know. I was torn on this, but I think the one that I'm going to settle on is The Songbird and the Heart of Stone by Carissa Broadbent. This is the 3rd book in the Crowns of Nyaxia series. Misha is everything. She is everything. I couldn't quite tell you exactly why I love her character so much, but I loved her character from the first time that she gets introduced. And the fact that we got a book focused on her was just everything that I needed. I loved it. The storyline was so good. I was not bored at all throughout that book, and I think I read that in, I don't know, a day and a half, 2 days, which is quick for me. I really think that that book could have been like a sit down and binge it all in one sitting book for me. The plot was so good. The cliffhanger at the end I need that next book with everything that I have. I loved Asar. I loved their banter. I loved Misha and everything about her character. The world building was there. Carissa Broadbent knows what she's doing. A book that surprised you this year, When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. I was so intimidated to get into the story because look at this thing. It's a thickums and the glossary is literally 20 pages. When you hold this out, it doesn't look like that much, but I promise you 20 pages worth of a glossary. When I first started reading that, I was like, maybe this isn't for me. That is a whole lot of info dump, and I don't really know what's going on. It's so much simpler than it looks. That is intimidating, but it genuinely was not that bad. The info dumping was not as bad as I expected either, and I really enjoyed the story so much. I have so many tabs in here, it's not even funny. I know that this had a lot of like mixed talk about it, but I gave this 5 stars and I loved it, and I want the next one now, and yeah. I have nothing bad to say about this story. It was such an interesting twist, not like anything I've read before, but I also really enjoyed the characters dynamic. That one wasn't super unique on its own. It definitely had a lot of just styles, like every other story. You have your main grumpy male character, the stabby FMC, but I did love her. She was so feisty, and it is like it kind of reminded me of From Blood and Ash with Poppy and Castile's kind of storyline. It was a fun read. Oh, I had another book for this. That's also powerful. By Lauren Roberts. The only reason that this is a book that shocked me this year is because I read Powerless a little bit after it came out, and I was disappointed in that book. I guess I could have put that also with the disappointing book because that book to me was just super overhyped. It was good, don't get me wrong. I still gave it I think I gave it a 3.5. It was still good. Something about it it didn't stick out to me. I really didn't care about Peyton's character in the first book. There was nothing that stood out about her at all. She just seemed very like dull. She's just lackluster. I don't know. I loved Kai, but again, their dynamic just didn't stick out very strong to me. The plot just seemed off. I don't know. Things just didn't feel like they flowed super well in the first one to me. I still don't even really think about that book, but this one, I knew how this was going to end. Anybody who has read Powerless knew how this was going to end. It still ripped my heart out and stomped on it. I still cried at the end. And this one just hurt. It hurt so much worse than Powerless did. I loved this book. I loved both our main characters. I'm genuinely sad that this was just a novella. I don't think I had ever... That's a lie. There was one other. This one and one other novella ever has gotten 5 stars from me, and it's 6 Scorched Roses by Carissa Broadbent, which is the novella in the Crowns of Nyaxia series. This and that are the only 2 novellas I've ever given 5 stars to, and they're the only ones that I've ever really thought about again. This redeemed the series for me. Unpopular opinion, I liked Reckless more than I did Powerless. Maybe I need to go back and do a Powerless reread now that this kind of changed my outlook at it, and Reckless kind of changed my look on it. Maybe I'd enjoy it more now. New favorite author that I discovered this year goes back to Danielle L. Jensen, because like I said, her writing is just super easy to digest. There are no confusions. It's not a ton of world building, but it's enough for you to be able to picture it. And her characters. I love the way she writes her characters. Really, I loved her writing, and now I need to go back into her backlog. What does she write? I think she writes The Bridge Kingdom. Your happiest read of the year. I'm gonna give it to The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. I gave this book like a 4.25 star rating, or a 4.5. I don't really remember exactly what I gave it, but there was just something about this book. It wasn't my favorite, but like it just felt right. I don't really know how to put it into words, but the magical realism that was in this, the way that towards the end of the book you realize the overlapping parts from the beginning that you never realized before, like the genuine happiness that I felt when I put 2 and 2 together and I was like, no, what? That was connected to that. There was something about this book that just made me genuinely feel so happy after I finished it. It feels weird saying that this was the happiest book that I read when I didn't give it a 5-star. It's just, you know, when you read something and you're just like, that's so wholesome and so cute. That's how I felt reading this. Your most frustrating book of the year. It's going to Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. I listened to the audio version of this, and maybe that was my problem. Maybe the audio book isn't good. There's just something about it. I don't know. I couldn't get behind it. One, I felt like it was just way too long and dragged out. Like every single time that I heard them say another chapter, I was like, how is this still going? How is this still going? And then like the back and forth with her and her teammate, I was ready to lose my mind. If I had to hear one more chapter about those two fighting, I wanted to physically reach into that story and just to our main character of like, please just kick him to the curb. I'm begging you at this point. And again, I don't know, the chemistry between those two main characters just didn't really feel all that there. I just couldn't get behind that story. It definitely frustrated me. I stuck it out to the end, and I kind of wish I didn't. Longest book of the year goes to this here Thickums. Let's just chapter 101. This is a good solid 835 pages. 835 pages of just sheer wrist-breaking weight. I don't have much to say other than I gave this, I don't remember if it was 4.5 or 5 stars, but really at the end of the day, it got that because I had invested so much time in the series to make me feel better about myself and how much time I spent on this. I gave it that much, but I don't think it deserved it. Thinking back now, I'd probably give it a 3.5 or a 4. It's not bad. I still enjoyed it, but this is definitely my least favorite series that she has wrote, and this book just did not live up to my expectations. I think that this one was better than House of Sky and Breath, mainly because I felt like so much of that book was so boring and there was nothing going on. This one definitely had a lot more going on, but I don't know. I feel like the only thing that really made me bump up the rating on this was the crossover that we get. The shortest book you read this year. That one goes to Cruel Winter with You by Ali Hazelwood. This one's part of like the Amazon original like Christmas series that just came out. This is only 73 pages on Kindle. If you're a faster reader, I think it first told me it was like an hour and a half read. I'm kind of slow and I'm pretty sure it took me like over 2 hours to read, but still. Anyway, that one was a fun one. It was a very fun read. I definitely recommend it. If you're looking for like a short little Christmas novella, pick it up because it's best friend's brother. A book you cannot stop thinking about. Ali Hazelwood again. It's Bride. I loved that book so much. I had way too much fun reading it. That straight up felt like peak late 2000s Twilight era. No shame in admitting that that was one of my favorite reads this year. I just had too much fun, and I still actively think about that book. That was also like her first paranormal romance book, and she did it perfectly. There were really no times in that book where I was just like, the whole time I was reading that book, I was like, okay. I loved it. It's such a good book. If you have not picked that up, what are you doing? An unpopular book you loved this year. Now, there were a couple different ways I could have taken that. It was a book that came out this year, but had a lot of like negative reviews towards it. But the way I chose to take that was just a book that I read that just didn't really have a lot of reviews. So it's not necessarily that people weren't liking it. It's just it doesn't have a lot of exposure. And that's how I chose to take that question. And with that, I'm going to choose At the End There Was You by Wendy Heiss. This is the first book in the Blues fairy tale. They're all pretty short. Like, this one was only 141 pages. These are all like little romance novella type things, and they all have to do with like, I don't know if it's gods, but I'll read the synopsis to this because it only has 1,200 ratings on Goodreads, and I think that this deserves more because I loved it. I gave this like 4.5 stars. I had such a fun time reading it. It says, the world will end in 7 days. Winter is a priestess. Her life is simple and uncomplicated, but shortly takes a turn when she is appointed as an aide for a mage who intends to stop the god of death from spreading a plague that would end their world. Both of them begin searching the Yervalis library for answers and finds more than they had bargained for. And as the end approaches, the questions begin vaguing. I don't know. All I know is I had a lot of highlights in that, and one of the later ones, I think it's like the third book in this series, which is what made me pick it up initially. I saw the third book, a quote from it on TikTok. But the third one focuses on like the god of death and the goddess of life, I think. Say less. I'm here for it. I need to get back into this because that one was really good, and the quote that I had seen for the third one, I need it. Again, you should check that one out because that was really good. What is your highest and lowest rated books you read on Goodreads, and do you agree? So I did a reread on Akamath this year. It feels slightly wrong including this, but I did read it. So this got the highest average rating with 4.65 stars. I agree. I think this book deserves all the hype that it gets. There's just something about the series that like straight up I will binge this whole book in one sitting, and don't talk to me, okay? I love this series. I'll probably always love this series. I've reread this book like 4 or 5 times and it's gotten a 5-star every single time. The amount of underlying and highlights that I have in this book is ridiculous. I can't help it. Kind of a biased opinion, but yeah, I think it deserves it. I'd put it at the top. And then my lowest one was Unhinged by Vera Valentine with an average of 3.02 stars. Yeah, I didn't even rate that. I feel like it's unfair to rate that because I kind of loosely understood what I was getting into when I decided to pick this book up. I don't really know why. I think it was just curiosity got the best of me, and I kept seeing different videos talking about this book, but no one really talked about this book. And I was like, I need to see what this is all about. And it was really short. And so I just decided to do it. And it is literally about a girl with her door. Pretty much pure smut. There was a plot there. It was different. I don't really have much more I can say. Honestly though, like, I don't necessarily agree that it should be the lowest because I feel like the writing itself wasn't bad. The story was a bit out there and very off the wall, but it was still not horribly written. I have read plenty of other books where the writing was just not there. Those are the type of books I would expect more so to have low ratings. One that really surprises me, this is completely off topic. Completely. One book that surprises me that is low on mine is For the Wolf by Hannah Witten. That has an average rating of 3.60 stars, and I truly just don't know why. If you put that one at the bottom of my list, which it's really not that far off, it's literally like 4 from the bottom on my list, and I truly just don't understand that because that is such a good book. The writing was good. The atmosphere was immaculate. I loved the characters, the dynamic between them, the banter. Like, it was all there. That's one I don't understand. That was off topic. I was just scrolling through this and yeah. Anyway, your most quotable read of the year. Honestly, I think I might have to give this to When the Moon Hatched. I'm trying to pick one that wasn't a reread from last year for this. I'm trying to only pick, because if it was going to be, we'll do 2 parts to this. First, I'm going to go with the one that I think I have the most underline and highlights, and that's going to go to A Fate Inked in Blood and When the Moon Hatched. Both of these they both have a ton of underline and highlights in this. If you're asking me, including rereads, I'm going to have to say, obviously, A Court of Mist and Fury, but also Fourth Wing. Both of those, I just finished my Fourth Wing reread. Both of those have a ton of highlights and underlines in them. So I guess we'll go with those two. Book with the most unique concept is gonna go to Wisteria by Adeline Grace. This is the third book in the Belladonna series. This one is literally about a orphan girl who gets moved from family member to family member, and all of them keep meeting their untimely death, and she can't die. So she can eat belladonna berries to like pass through the veil and talk to death himself. And then she comes into like this whole mystery aspect where she's trying to help find out what happened to one of her family members, and she has to team up with death himself to help her figure this out. And then the third one, you're following another one of her family members and Fate himself. I truly have never read another book like that, and the concept was there. It's definitely more of like a dark gothic mystery with a hint of romance in there. I was there for it. I absolutely loved it. It was too good. That's another one. I definitely recommend that series. It's YA. There's not a ton of spice in it at all. Definitely recommend. Books you would reread next year. That's going to be Quicksilver by Callie Hart. I only gave that, I think, 3 or 3.5 star. I definitely thought that was an overhyped book, but I want to give it another chance. Maybe I was too harsh on it. I want to try again, so I'm going to reread that next year. Also, Reckless by Lauren Roberts for when the next book comes out. Bride by Allie Hazelwood, because, like I said, I can't stop thinking about it. I'll probably end up rereading ACOTAR again whenever she decides to announce that the next book is going to come out. Hint, hint. Still waiting. Anyway, also, I kind of want to do a When the Moon Hatched reread, because I think the next one comes out in February next year. I could be completely wrong on that. I know it comes out. It's like the ballad of something. I just don't know when it comes out. It's sometime next year. So I'll probably try and do a reread of this before that does. There's a lot of books that I just want to reread, if we're being honest. Your reading goal reflections and 2025 reading goal. So my reading goal for this year was 70 books, and I'm at 63 books. I don't know if I will get to that. I'm in the middle of doing an Iron Flame reread. I'm halfway through The Hobbit, and I am listening to the audiobook of Lights Out by, is it Nessa Allen, something like that. I don't know if I'll end up hitting that goal. I'm hoping I do, but I kind of gave myself a higher goal than I really thought that I would read, because I think last year I read like 60 books, so I gave myself 10 more that I wanted to read. I'm happy with what I set it at, and I think next year's goal I'm going to set to 65 books, because it's not necessarily the amount of books that I want to read, it's the amount of like quality books that I read. So I plan on just embracing DNFing more. I want to get to at least like the 35% mark on all books before I decide to DNF. So that's gonna like take me a couple days on most books to get there. So I don't expect to read as many books, but I just want to read more books that I genuinely enjoy. I feel like there were quite a few books this year looking back where I'm like, I kind of wish I would have just DNF'd that and moved on. So yeah, I guess that leads into the next question of reading priorities and goals in 2025. Like I said, I want to embrace DNFing more. If I'm not vibing with a book, I either want to soft DNF it and not force myself, or just straight up if I don't like a book, I'm just going to move to the side. Because like there's just so many books that I have on my physical TBR, and so many books that come out every single year that I just want to read. And honestly, I want to embrace rereading more. Instead of trying to consume as many books as I possibly can, which I feel like starting this year is kind of how I started off. I was like, I want to read more books. But like, I just want to embrace taking my time on books more, enjoying them, highlighting, underlining, and just rereading the books that I just thoroughly have enjoyed. I am definitely one of those people who just likes repetitive things, and when I like something, I hyperfixate on it to like the extreme. It will literally be all that consumes my thoughts, and I will just nonstop think about it, and I can just consume the same thing over and over and over and over again, and it doesn't get old to me. I will straight up just keep rewatching the same movies instead of watching new ones. I listen to the same songs instead of listening to new ones, and I just enjoy rereading books that I have just really loved. I haven't done a Fourth Wing reread since I first read them. This is my first time doing a reread on it. And I've thought about doing it so many times. I wish I would have just done it sooner because I had so much more fun reading it the second time. There were so many more things that I picked up on. And that's, I think, one of the biggest things that I like about rereads is just like there's so many Easter eggs that once you've read a book that you're like, oh, wait. And I just love that feeling. I love reading something and be like, oh my gosh, this is what she was hinting at this whole entire time, and I just had no clue. So that's my whole thing that I'm looking forward to the most next year is just like rereading things that I love, embracing DNFing, and just trying to consume more quality. I don't know how to word that. I just want to take my time and really absorb what I'm reading instead of trying to rush the reading to get onto the next story. I'm pretty happy about that. I don't know if I ever fully said, I think my goal next year is going to be 60 books again. And that's just like, I'm throwing a number out there that's less than this year. I just don't really care if I hit that. I would love to hear any of these questions that like really stuck out to you. I would love to hear your responses to them. I want to know what your favorite book of the year was, what your least favorite book of the year was, your reading goals for next year. Did you meet your reading goals for this year? Did you even set any? I want to know everything. So make sure to leave a comment down below on just any question that really stuck out to you throughout this video. And if you didn't even have one that stuck out, just leave like a little cute snowflake for the winter season. But thank you guys so much for hanging out. I greatly appreciate it. Make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this video. It helps tremendously. And on top of that, make sure to subscribe to stay up to date with all my future videos. I try and upload every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern time, and I'm gonna try and stick at that. I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!